Right, so the next thing we need to do is actually link all these bones to our model. So if we select the model here, and I'm just going to move it up to there to make this easier, and then we select all of our bones like so. So we've got the bones in the model that we need here. Then if we go to our rigging tab, so up here then rigging, and we go to skin, bind skin, that should automatically kind of rig this, although it's not going to be very usable because none of the weights will be correct, but you should have kind of rough movements like this. The next thing we want to do is set a bind pose. Now this is really kind of important here. So basically this means if we screw up our rig, we want our model and rig to be in the same position when we unlink it and so on. So if we just hold shift and click on claw root, select all of our bones and then make sure we're on frame 0 and just hit S to add a key. Then we're going to go to frame, well in fact we're going to leave that for now, but as long as we've got a keyframe on frame 0 that basically takes our model back to exactly how it was before with the rig all in the right place. That means if we ever unbind, then the model won't lose, the bones won't all be in the wrong position and so on, so we won't have to redo everything. It means that our actual starting keyframe will be frame 1, so where we move everything to its proper starting position, but we'll go over that later. Let's get this all so that everything is correctly linked. So if we next go to skin, we go to paint skin weights, go back to move mode and just select our model, then just click on our, I think you need to double click, let's just check, yeah, so double click to bring that up. Now what we're going to want to do, this is different to standard kind of character rigging where we can actually paint on our weights. We can paint on our weights, but it's much more efficient if we just select everything and flood it with a full value of 1. Now the reason we do that is because you don't really have any deformation going on here, it's just kind of something's either moving or it isn't. So let's just start with something really basic like our toy down here. So I'm just going to go back to move mode again by using W on my keyboard, right click and go to hold it down and go to vertex mode. I'm just going to double click on a vert. Now the problem here is you see how if I try and do a group select, it will automatically select the bone. So if you just right click vertex and just double click a vert, that will select all of those vertices like so. So if we double click on our paint, select the toy bone and just hit flood, you see how that's all gone white, but everything else is black. So white means it's got full motion on whichever bone you have selected. Black means it will have no motion on it at all. So if we just press W to go to move mode and we'll select that bone and then move that, you see how the toy now moves but nothing else does. So we basically need to repeat that process on each bone. So let's select all this area. So you do have to be in vertex mode to do this, but you can, I'll just show you a little thing. If I select all these faces, hold Control and press F9, that will convert that selection to vertices. Then we'll double click on our paint thing again, make sure we've got the right rail bone, which I believe is that one, and we'll just hit flood. Oh no, sorry, I think it's this one, and hit flood. So press W to go back to move mode, and we'll just select this bone, and now you see when I move that, the whole rail kind of moves with it. For the next one, if I vertex mode, select this guy here, and what we want is this top layer of verts on here as well. So I'm going to select all those verts and then select all those. So this way, this will move with it, but we're going to put this other loop with this bone here so that we can stretch that shape down. So this should be rail 2. Press 5 on your keyboard to get back to smooth shaded view and just hit flood. So you can see at the moment we've still got some of this shape on this bone, but that's okay because once we apply those verts to our claw dropper bone, it will lose all the weights on there. It can only have a total value of 1, you see. So I'll just show you that in action. If I just select him, go to vert mode, select the dropper and hit flood. So you see how that now has full white, so a full value of 1. If I select my rail 2, you see how it's now vanished off there. Each vert can only have a total kind of value of 1. So if you assign 1 to another bone, it's going to lose all of its linking to other bones. We also need to select the verts of the bottom row of this, so that when we, if I just select him, claw dropper, and move that down, you see the way that moves down, but this bit doesn't. So if I just select him, go to face mode, Control F9 to go to verts, and I need to minus these verts off the selection. Now obviously the problem here is if I do that, it thinks I'm trying to select the bone, so you have to go in here and take these out. Obviously what you can do to make this a bit easier is use our display animation joint size. You bring that really small to like 1, and then it makes it much easier to like select things and so on. So we know those verts there need to go on the dropper, so if we just hit flood, now if I select that bone there and pull that down, you see how that is kind of coming with it. But because the top verts are into that bone, they stay up there. Okay, so finally, let's just do our joint size again. It's a good idea actually when you're doing any of this to stick joint size over here as a shortcut, just to make it easier to get to. So, let's go to vertex mode, select all those, go to our paint, make sure we've got the right bone, hit flood, here again, and flood. And finally, flood that guy as well. So hopefully that's all. You can actually just do this and work your way down. We know we don't want any on the roof. That's got all the rail on it, so that's good. That's got that on it. Dropper's got that. Each of the claws is assigned like that, and the toy has the toy. So that should be okay. So the next thing we need to do then is get into our base position. So I'm going to go to keyframe 1. I'm going to select all of my bones. And remember, you can hold shift and click just to maximize that. I'm going to just keyframe it with S straight away, and then I'm going to move this. Let's unhide all, and we'll make sure this is all in the right position. So he's actually okay. Let's move it down a little bit. I guess we want this guy over here, and everything else should be all right. So that is our bite. So that's how our animation is going to start from frame 1. When we export, we're going to export from frame 1 rather than 0. Right, so we'll wind on to say frame 34. Select this key here, and I'm just going to, I can use my top view actually just to line that up. Then we'll select this bone here. I'm going to hit S there as well. So that means that when that moves across to there, from 34 to say 58 is when we're going to move there. So I'll just show you what that does. So now we move across to there, then we move across to there, rather than it all kind of moving at once. So again, we need to make sure that's exactly right. So there. Remember, you can use these keys to, these buttons here, to go between your different keyframes rather than trying to slide across and guess. Okay, so that moves to there, he moves to there. And I'm going to go to say frame 60, add a keyframe there, and then move him down over the toy. Now I'm not too worried about timing at this point, because we can tweak that afterwards in terms of like the length of time each one is. So for example, that's definitely too fast, so let's just move that on. And the way I selected that, by the way, is just holding shift and clicking will select all the keys in that area, and then you can kind of move them where you want them to go. Okay, so next I'm going to select all of our claws and just hit S on those, because as that moves down, the claws aren't going to move at all, but when it stops, we want the claws to start kind of coming inwards like that. And notice how I still have my snap to 5 degrees turned on. Just makes it so much easier to be kind of precise with this. We can always, obviously it's not quite there, but I honestly think you'll get away with it anyway. So, but yeah, if you want to be completely precise about it, obviously you can. I won't for this example anyway. So again, I'm going to go to my dropper here, and I'm going to wait till those close before I add my key, and then I'm going to move him back up. Now I'm going to need to mess about with the toy as well, so I need to make sure I'm on the right key. So just use that button there